Hi, this is Tony Lin. Welcome to my video. Today I'm going to show you an interview from the leading vaccine expert from Israel. He also works for the Israel government to set up the public health vaccine policy for the Israel government. And keep in mind that Israel is the first country in this world to start the booster shot. And Israel is also the first country to start the second booster shot, which is the fourth vaccine shot. And Israel is also the first country to start the vaccine passport, as known as a green pass. So when the reporter asked this Israel vaccine expert about his opinion for the vaccine passport, I think his opinion should have a certain weight among all the leading vaccine experts among this world. So without further ado, let me introduce this expert, his background. This vaccine chief from the Israel, his name is Professor Cyrille Cohen, and he works on the advisory committee for COVID vaccine clinical trial for Israel government. Now let me play this video for you.
The narrative or policies hasn't yet caught up with the reality, because Israel was also famous for being one of the first countries to introduce a green pass or vaccine pass, which presumably the principle of it is that you can feel safe in a room full of vaccinated people if it prevents transmission. In a world where it doesn't prevent transmission very much or at all, vaccine passports are not really very relevant. Has Israel caught up with that fact?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not only myself saying that in the medias, for the past few months, but other people, especially with the Omicron, where we don't see virtually any difference. There's a very narrow gap between people vaccinated and non-vaccinated. Both get infected with the virus more or less at the same pace. But
let me replay this video again.
Other people, especially with the Omicron, where we don't see virtually any difference. There's a very narrow gap between people vaccinated and non-vaccinated. Both can get infected with the virus more or less at the same pace.
So you heard it. He saw the virtually no difference between the vaccinated and unvaccinated people. If there is any difference, he said there is a very narrow gap between the vaccinated and unvaccinated people, and they all got Omicron COVID. According to the Professor Cyrille Cohen, this green pass, as known as vaccine passport, is no longer relevant during the Omicron outbreak. I believe his word. However, I want to point out, although he is the leading vaccine expert in Israel, he can access all the COVID data in the public health system in the entire Israel. However, he probably doesn't know the data outside of Israel. Here, let me compare Israel data with India's data for the COVID cases. This COVID data is from our Word in Data, and you can look up the Israel and India's data from their own website, and I'll include the link for you, and you will see what I see in this video. So first, I want to show you the Israel cases. So Israel cases, as you can see, they started. This is the Israel daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people. It started from March 1st, 2020, and until today. Until today is January 21st, 2022. And as you can see, although Israel is the first country to start the booster, and Israel is also the country to start the second booster, and also Israel has one of the highest vaccination rate in the entire world. However, during the Omicron outbreak, you can see compared to the previous wave, the current wave is skyrocketing. It's literally off the chart. If you look at this chart, right, it's skyrocketing, it's off the chart. So according to our word in data, Israel has around 65.12% of fully vaccination rate, and India has 48.22% vaccination rate. So India's fully vaccination rate is much lower than the Israel fully vaccination rate. However, let's take a look about compare the Israel daily cases with India's daily cases. So, as you can see, while there are two graphs, let me zoom in for you, so you can see the India daily cases right now is very low, even though during the Omicron outbreak. And you can see this is a massive difference between the Israel is right about here and the India is right down here. You can see when these Israel leading vaccine expert, the Professor Cyrille Cohen, he told you that the gap between the unvaccinated people and the vaccinated people are very narrow, almost virtually non-exist. However, if you compare the India's COVID data with the Israel's India data, you see the gap is actually massive. If you don't believe me, go ahead to look up our word in data. You will see the massive case difference between the India and the Israel. A vaccine expert from Israel, what he told is not correct. He said the difference between the unvaccinated and vaccinated is very narrow. Actually, if you compare to country, the gap is massive, and it is in reversed. In the reality, maybe in Israel, the result is the vaccinated people are ahead of the unvaccinated people. However, on the reality between the India and Israel, India is ahead of Israel. This vaccine expert from Israel, he didn't see the data from India. Actually, the gap is massive and it's reversed. The India is ahead of Israel in terms of daily cases. So there you have it. And I'm just to provide you the data and the evidence from around the world and also from the expert and from the leading expert around the world, and provide the detailed evidence and the data for you and let you be the judge. I cannot say whether this vaccine works or not. Otherwise, the YouTube is going to censor my video. So I can only provide you the data and evidence and let you to be the judge whether this vaccine is effective or not. So if you think today's video is helpful, please hit the like button and share this video with more people. Thank you for watching today's video. Have an amazing day. I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye.